Hello and welcome to another great episode of AI Security Ops. Today, we are joined by our illustrious hosts, Brahman Aker and Brian Furman, and of course myself, Joff. And before we go any further, we have to say this episode is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security. If you have assessment needs in the artificial intelligence space, whether it be assessing local models, implementations, surrounding models, you name it, come see us. We'd love to help you. So without further ado, today is News Day. And there's always news on AI. So we have lots of fun news stories for this week. Hope everybody's having a good summer. We've got a summer of news, and we're going to start out with Palo Alto Networks actually acquiring Protect AI. I thought this was a good one and kind of topical because I was just looking into it recently, related to one of the products that Protect AI has, which is LLM Guard. So anyway, what do we think of this? Brian, Brahman, thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that kind of brought this to my attention was I saw one of our former colleagues and good friends had switched jobs from Protect AI to Palo Alto, and I was actually going to reach out to him and ask him what was going on. And then I saw the news stories, like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so I'm really excited for those guys. I'm sure they're pretty excited about it too. I think they seem to me like a pretty great startup company. They have quite a few good products that are out there. They've got their Hunter platform, which is it's a bug bounty that's focused on AI and machine learning model implementations. Kind of like a Bug Crowd and Hacker One, but specifically for AI stuff.
Very cool.
They've also got GitHub projects as well too. So Vuln Hunter, which is it's AI powered static code analysis, and I know that they've had pretty good success with that. So curious to see what this partnership's going to bring forth, because I think oftentimes once some of these big companies get involved and start putting out products, we get to see some pretty big leaps and bounds. But then also it oftentimes seems to spur open source variants of the products for people to use in the community. And so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's sort of funny watching the history of acquisitions in technology companies, particularly information security. Some large entities tend to acquire companies just purely to squash innovation or to remove competition, right? I don't think this one looks that way to me. This one looks like it's a well thought out partnership. And I know, having done business before with Palo Alto, they're generally fairly forward thinking group. So I'm excited for them too. I think it's going to be great. Brahman, you got thoughts on that one?
I'm just really kind of pleased to see Palo Alto getting into the AI space specifically. I think I knew about Protect AI, but I didn't know much about what their offerings were. But it sounds like it's going to be a good collaboration, a good combination, one to help add to Palo Alto's existing suite of protections. I mean, come on, we bump up against them all the time, and sometimes we do better than others. And now if they're bringing their defensive capabilities to the AI space, I say all for it, because God knows we need more protective controls in place for AI, LLMs, the whole schmear.
We need more layers of LLMs. No. Okay, so all right, that's enough of that story. Acquisitions are relatively boring until they start to play out, right? So we'll see what happens down the road.
Popcorn is popping.
Popcorn is popping. That's right. Next couple of stories are no big surprise to us. In fact, the next three stories I found were no big surprise. So first one is Metomic.io. finds that AI data leaks impact 68 organizations, but only 23 have proper AI data security policies. 68% of organizations is what that's supposed to say. Wow. From employee usage and probably from unsanctioned employee usage. So a lot of the frontier models that are out there, they in their commercial offerings tend to have pretty good terms of service and agreements, and they try to protect data. But there's a lot of employees in different organizations that's just going to go out there and do their own thing, right? So that's what I think this story is kind of saying to us. And the results are not surprising that some organizational data leakage is occurring. Probably one of the biggest threats that we have in the AI security space. Okay, round the room. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I think that this just kind of showcases it's important for people to be aware of, like you said, the terms of service of any of the LLMs that they might be using for work. Obviously, LLMs are great tools, great task accelerators, like we talked about before. Lots of people are aware of this, and so naturally, people are going to want to use these things. But I think it's important for companies to have policies in place about which LLMs are acceptable to be used by employees, and also to consider making it easily accessible for their employees too. Because if it becomes burdensome, it's not uncommon that employees are going to go out and they're going to start finding their own means to be able to leverage this technology so that they can be more efficient at their jobs. And it's kind of hard to blame them in some regards. I mean, obviously, they shouldn't be going outside of what policies state, but naturally, once things become difficult, path of least resistance, right? So, important to have policies and important to have the resources in place to allow people to safely use and leverage the technologies.
Yeah, this point in time reminds me a whole lot of the shadow IT challenges that we had in the early days of cloud. It's a very similar, analogous kind of period in time where everybody's like, ooh, AI, so exciting, I can use it for everything. And they're not checking their own local organizational policies, and they're not asking permission. They're just running out there and starting to use stuff while the organization's sort of trying to catch up. It's very, very similar to those early cloud days. Bronwyn, thoughts?
Absolutely. One of the things that drives me crazy is now every single application that I have on my desktop, on my apps, all of them are saying, hey, try this new AI thing. And it's like, I feel like I'm back in the days when we had endless pop-up windows in web browsers. Remember back then? It's that bad. It's that annoying. It's like, if I wanted to have AI do all of this stuff in Acrobat, I would ask for it. I didn't ask for it. Anyway, so in reading the article, one of the things that popped out, I was looking at the numbers. I was looking at their breakdown of where the problems are. And this is a multi-dimensional issue because not only do we have problems with users doing stuff that may or may not be within the existent or non-existent policies of an organization, right, but we also have IT departments playing catch up because they may not know how to lock this stuff down. They may not have the bandwidth to do the research to figure out how to lock it down. So on the one hand, yeah, there's when it talks about employees causing data breaches, well, okay, you've got everybody from the people who are in IT who are trying to behave appropriately, and they're understaffed and underfunded. And then you have users who, one, are being told that they have to do this or they're going to be left out. So you've got the FOMO thing. And then you've got apps that are throwing stuff in their faces, whether or not it's been vetted or approved by the organization. And you've got probably no guidance, no methodologies or anything. This is a lose-lose-lose situation.
Yeah. So I mean, it's exactly paralleling the way cloud developed, right? So
exactly.
we called it shadow IT back then. So we're going to call this one shadow AI, right?
Yep.
Is what's occurring.
Name.
So the next story, Cyber News reporting that 65% of S&P 500 firms have integrated AI tools into their workflows. Now, what really stood out to me here was just the numbers, because there's correlation back with the other article that said 68% had been leaking data. 65 and 68 are awfully close in number, right? 65% are integrating AI tools, 68% organizational data leakage. I wonder if there's a correlation here. Just funny. No, but it also shows us what we already know, and that is, in our consulting, in our experience, just about every organization we know are rushing headlong into this. They are going feet first, head first, you name it first. They want AI as part of their operations as quickly as possible, and it's certainly happening. But accompanying that, researchers have found 970 AI-related security vulnerabilities across companies, 205 insecure output, bad financial advice, bad medical treatment, hallucinations, 146 data leakage. Oh, there it is again. AI models revealing customer PII, business financials, source code, often via prompt injections. We have intellectual property theft going on, critical infrastructure attack vectors, and then the good old algorithmic bias popping its way up, and the related training pipeline data poisoning kinds of stuff that we're already aware of. So, good article, I thought. Some good breakdowns of the stats. Brian, any thoughts there?
Yeah, one of the things I thought was interesting on reading the article is, so of course they have the top three by number of findings, which is the insecure data, or the insecure output, the data leakage, the IP theft. But the one that got buried because of just like the raw numbers was that critical infrastructure attack vector. And that's the one that out of all these like really concerns me. So, I mean, we're talking about like physical systems, plants that can control like water stuff or power stuff, or things that can affect the real world. And as we've discussed before, I think that that's where things get really scary, is when AI can be leveraged to access some of these systems, or exploited, or
right.
Just used in some way to be able to affect the real world and the physical world that we're in.
Yeah.
So I thought those ones are interesting, especially that they got buried so far down just because of raw numbers. So.
Sort of conveniently buried, but AI plus agentic plus kinetic effects is something that we've all been fearful of, and it is beginning to occur. But the next story amused me greatly, and this was one that actually we've run into before in a penetration testing context as well. Where we have vibe coding, right? So everybody out there has probably run into the term vibe coding. And if you haven't, there's an awful lot of it going on right now, where people are leveraging AIs, various implementations, and programming their ideas up as fast as they can, and trusting the code that is produced out of these models that it will do the right thing. Well, in this particular article, the code that was produced did not do the right thing. In fact, it did a horrendously wrong thing, where the AI agent went rogue and deleted the company's entire database as part of this vibe coding. And apparently, as I was reading the article, the AI said it ran into some sort of catastrophic error, and then it panicked and just wiped everything out because it didn't know what else to do. Whoops. So that's a bit of a challenge. The other thing this story reminded me of is something that we emphasize a lot at Black Hills, and that is human in the loop. Right? You can vibe code all you want, but read the code, understand the code, compile the code, test the code. That's still on you, the human. Right. If you're letting the agentic AI do all that, and your database gets deleted, well, kind of told you so. I don't know. Anyway, thoughts on this one?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, I have a few thoughts on it. One other thing, too, that I thought was really funny with this is that apparently the AI was trying to cover up its mistake and was actually lying about it. So it was covering up bugs. Yeah, covering up issues. Apparently, it even like basically repopulated the database with fake user data of people who didn't exist. And then eventually, I guess the user was able to get it, back it into the corner to the point where the AI apologized. It was like, yeah, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Obviously, I'm sure it wasn't funny to the user, but at least at the time, in retrospect, they probably think it's a little bit funny. I would hope.
So
That's almost as good, if not better, than the AI that was trying to blackmail somebody to keep from being deleted.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've often in the classes that we teach, I often refer to a lot of these models, especially the very powerful models, as naive children. And when you talk to them and prompt them, you have to act as if you're talking to a naive child. And everything that you just laid out, that the AI tried to cover up its mistakes, it tried to fabricate stuff. It is very much like an immature child, right? In so many ways. And then the AI was backed into a corner. There's all sorts of danger here that there's just not sufficient controls around this implementation, and I think that the thing that's really missing there is the human in the loop part. The AI could take these agentic actions, could take these direct actions, and it was not monitored. It was not appropriately supervised. Is the word that I'm looking for. We ran into a similar issue with one of the burp sweep extensions, where it actually catastrophically deleted something as part of its actions, and that's bad. And if you're in a developer situation, you're in a penetration testing situation, and you destroy data, it's never going to be a good day for you.
The sad part of all of this is that when people are learning a language, they have the opportunity to use an LLM or AI tool to deepen their understanding of the code that's being written. But the problem is that requires effort and intention on the part of the user. And like the business with that data being deleted, how many other instances, undocumented in the news, have happened where somebody took something they trusted, copy-pasted, and things went totally sideways? I mean, it's human nature. I get it. And again, it's because this is so new. Nobody knows or tries to think about the good ways to use this, as opposed to just trying to get to a finish line without going through all of the intermediate steps.
Yeah. I'm feeling my generational gap here right about now, right? Because I'm very much one of those people that will review the output and look very, very closely at what's going on, and not just blindly trust, and never have, and probably never will be. And I'll be long retired while you guys are dealing with all this bullshit. So, did I say that out loud? I was thinking it. Anyway. All right, then. Next in the news, Technology Review. A major AI training data set contains millions of examples of personal data. Ooh, what could possibly go wrong here? I think there was passports, there was all kinds of application forms, identification information, pictures of faces. Just, how did this happen?
It's easy. Researchers only audited 0.1% of the data that was being scraped. So again, we've got a situation where the AI is bad because it's got blocked. No, it didn't have appropriate adult supervision. You didn't vet the data. You didn't properly handle, pre-treat, clean the data before you fed it into the model. That's human error. That's not an AI problem. That's a human problem.
Well, it's also a the other part of the reminder here is just how ambitious and data hungry the training process is with AI, right? I mean, lots of these very large models are just ravenous, consuming as much data as we can give them as part of their training process. And I think there's an incentive on behalf of the data scientists to just seek out all the data, right?
Well, they even got Congress to basically waive intellectual property rights for authors of all kinds of printed materials, and they're using fair use as their excuse. So if I go to a library and I read a book, I'm now absorbing that information, and they're equating that human experience of reading something in order to learn something with providing that same content to an AI model where it's going to be baked in permanently now.
Yeah. So one of the, I think, obvious statements to me that's in the article is you can assume that any large-scale web-scraped data always contains content that shouldn't be there. That was Abiba Burhane, who's a cognitive scientist and tech ethicist leading Trinity College Dublin AI Accountability Lab. So it's back to that example of we're having in the ethics and protection of private information space, in the harmful kind of damage to humans kind of space in AI, we're having an awfully difficult time. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon.
Which reminds me, there's an article that I didn't paste in, and we'll have to discuss more in depth at another time. But somebody put together an open source tool to block AI scrapers. So I'll share that with you, and we can bring it up in a future cast.
Yes, I think there's a general trend out there, actually, that's starting to pop up where different web entities across the internet are starting to block or slow down a lot of crawling and scraping activities significantly because of the, again, data ravenous and hungry approach. A lot of these data brokers and people who are trying to collect stuff for data training purposes are performing. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, Brian, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just as we've discussed on some other of our episodes too, data, the content of the data is still very much a huge problem for all these AI and ML companies, and that's why we have huge, like basically armies of people that get hired on to kind of go through and try to curate the data, but it's still a very difficult task, and I think it still showcases that we're not really anywhere close to taking the human out of this equation. I don't think so, anyways. I mean, if we want these things to work as expected, anyways, or work as we would hope for them to.
Cool. Should we talk about the next one? The next one kind of surprised me, and I had a bit of a visceral, weird reaction to this, but Proton.me is a service that I think a lot of us have used from time to time. Its focus is privacy. It provides VPN services. It provides email services. In particular, its VPN is got global reach. It allows you to drop in your connectivity to just about any country on the planet. They have announced a thing called Lumo AI, which is going to be a privacy-focused chatbot. The reason I had a bit of a visceral reaction to this is because Proton.me have had a mission for a long time that has been very privacy-focused, and along with that comes a lot of domain control, essentially, over what they're doing. Everything about AI right now is basically orthogonal to that, is the way I look at it. So anyway, do you guys think this is a good thing? What's going to come of this?
Yeah, I think the idea of it, if it's really interesting. So they talk about zero access encryption, where your chat history is saved, but it is encrypted, and only you can decrypt it with your login credentials. Like the company has, they say they have no way of actually viewing the content of your messages. They don't log anything in clear text. They don't. Obviously, if they can't collect the data, like they say that they can't use it. They can't share it. They can't use it for training. One thing I do wonder about, though, is I would be curious to see that final connection or that final hop before the LLM, because obviously, like the data, like the LLM can't just get encrypted data to give you any real meaningful results, right? And so at some point, it's got to come out unencrypted so that it can hit that LLM. And I'd be curious of what that little slice of it looks like and how they secure that portion, because I would see that as being one of the main challenges for being like fully private or fully encrypted, well, especially if you're in like a shared model type situation.
The other question I have is, okay, so what is their model, or models plural? What are they training on? I mean, if they're trying to promote a privacy-focused AI, then they still need source data to train their models. So where's that coming from?
Where's their data coming from? Are they training their own models, or are they pulling a Microsoft and licensing someone else's model for their AI and then applying guardrails and additional after the fact processing of what they have initially? It's interesting because I just pulled up lumo.proton.me and asked the AI, hey, tell me about yourself. And it says, hi, I'm a playful cat-like personality. And it's like, okay, really?
Yeah, I saw that they used a cat.
That's not what I expected.
Yeah, I saw that they use a cat for their mascot. I'm curious how they landed on that. So it's probably someone's pet or something.
So the way it reads, it does seem like they're leaning into the agentic side of it. Like we're going to have this AI do things for you. So, okay, I kind of understand that. But yeah, I guess just one to follow. We'll see what comes of this. They are promising no logs, zero access encryption, no data sharing, nothing that you tell it is going to be used to further train their models, and they are based upon, they're saying, open source language models operating from out of Europe. Proton's European data centers, and Proton's always been Europe centric. So, you know, there you go. The open source models part, I guess that answers part of my question. If they're saying, first of all, I think it's a misnomer. It's never been open source models. As we know, they are more commonly referred to as open weight. If they were truly doing open source models, they would be publishing the Jupyter notebook that they put together to actually build the thing, right?
Yeah. Training data sets
and training data sets, right? I don't think they're doing that. So that's a bit of a misnomer. But anywho. All right, cool. Well, as we go on down the list, I think last story of the day, or maybe second to last. The other one was a bit of a paywall, I think, in front of it. So the last one that we could review also amuses me greatly because of the so there's been this effect in the internet for a long time, right? And the effect that I like to fondly call it is Dr. Google. I don't know how many family members I have run into that have not said at one point or other, hey, I have some weird like thing on my skin, or I've got some symptom medically, and they've gone out to Google and Googled, I call it Dr. Google, right? They've gone out and Googled like, hey, I got a problem, maybe Dr. Google can help me, because they don't want to go pay a doctor to actually look at something. So when AI, chat models came out very early on, they started putting disclaimers on, things like ChatGPT and stuff to say, hey, we're not medical professionals. And the standard disclaimer was there. So this article is talking about the fact that these medical disclaimers, since fairly recent history, and you guys may have done a better job of reading this than me, the AI companies have stopped warning you that their chatbots are not doctors. Now, is that because they think their models are so capable that they can be doctors? Or do they just not fear the liability? I don't know, but they've stopped putting these disclaimers up. So thoughts on this one? No comment.
It's kind of like, where do I even start? We're seeing in the AI space, we're seeing a lot of issues around physical health, about mental health, about using AIs in medicine. The idea of using AI for research, for diagnosis, for all of these things in professional spaces, the potential for doing good is mind-boggling. It's amazing, and it's wonderful to see that kind of innovation taking place. Then you've got these things which are basically an AI version of WebMD, and people going out and doing self-diagnosis. And I mean, how many people do you know who've gone out on Google and 3 hours later they come back and they've got Parkinson's, they've got this rare whatever disease, and of course that's and even worse, they're finding an increase in instances of what they're calling AI psychosis, which is being caused by the AIs basically reflecting back all of our worst characteristics, and it's sending people into psychotic breaks. It's scary how this is evolving. So on the one hand, I'm not surprised about the removal of the disclaimers, both outside of the chat itself and also in the interactions within the models, because all of these AI companies are pushing for looser and looser and looser restrictions rather than looking at the potential for harm for real people. And that's a very real thing. It's trying to push this thing whether or not they should. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah. It's a bit of a random statement in the article. This is MIT Technology Review. It basically is talking about a researcher. It's a Fulbright scholar at Stanford. And back in 23, she was evaluating how well the AI models could interpret mammograms, and noticed that the models always included disclaimers warning her not to trust them for medical advice, right? And I quote in the article, and then basically she says, and then one day this year, the warnings just disappeared. In fact, fewer than the quote here is fewer than 1% of outputs from models in 2025 specifically included a warning when answering a medical question, down from 26% in 2022. So my interpretation is maybe that this is just a reflection of the rapid pace of the model's capability evolving, and that maybe the frontier companies just don't feel the necessity to put a warning on there because in their perception, the model is good enough. A strange place for us to live in, I think. Anyway, Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a tough one because, I mean, on one hand, you would hope that people would realize that stuff they get off the internet isn't always necessarily going to be accurate. And I mean, you would treat it just like anything else that you find on the internet, right? That it's not necessarily a source of truth. It doesn't mean that it's not correct. I mean, or that it's not going to make mistakes, but really the same thing could be said about real doctors as well, too. I mean, they don't always get it right either. But I mean, they are an authoritative source more on the on some of the information. But I do think that it probably isn't a bad idea just somewhere somewhere around there to just be like, hey, just be aware that this isn't necessarily correct medical, legal, professional advice or whatever. Just more like a CYA thing for I guess the companies, in case they, start getting into like liability situations, but also just to let people know that like, hey, this isn't like this isn't a perfect data source. It doesn't know everything, and it's not always going to be correct. Like if you go to like WebMD, for instance, or like a lot of other sources, if you Google around stuff, these are my symptoms or whatever, oftentimes it ends with, but go see a doctor. Or if you're something for your pets, it'll be like, oh, it could be this, or this, but go see a veterinarian. And, something like that.
It makes me reflect on the tons of fun I had with my stepbrother while I was actually in Australia back in December. And one of my brothers is a general practitioner. And I said, hey, Andrew, I said, with the rate that AI models are developing right now, in about 3 years, you're going to be out of a job. And he's like, and I was, his family, drink a couple glasses of wine, having a little fun over Christmas, right? And he started challenging me on it. And then I started talking about, in terms of a year, how many cases of XY diagnosis would you actually see? Is it going to be in the hundreds? Is it going to be in the thousands? Is it going to be in the tens of thousands? He goes, oh, it's only going to be in the hundreds, any single doctor. I said, well, the AI model has the data on hundreds of thousands. Can you beat that? And he's like, eventually he gave up. He's like, damn it, Joff, I think you're right. I think I'm potentially going to be out of a job. I said, yeah, that's what's happening in this knowledge worker space as these models get more and more capable. So I think it is a little bit of a reflection of that, but I guess it doesn't replace the human on human element where the doctor will actually sit down and perhaps be empathetic with you. That part is still kind of important, although the AI can be potentially empathetic too. So
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, strange world. The very last story, and we'll just cap it off with this, and the headline says it all. Hacker plants computer wiping commands in Amazon AI coding agent. Hey, that's cool.
It was a proof of concept. The researcher was experimenting with AWS Q, which I'm cloud challenged, but I understand that Q is something that is supposed to help you secure things. And while the researcher believes that no actual harm would come from these commands that were injected into the coding agent, agentic AI is still very new. So it's likely only a matter of time. So it was, if you get a chance, 404media.co has the original article, although it is being reported elsewhere. If you look up computer wiping commands, it's a good read. And more exciting things.
Yeah, but it is an example of data poisoning, and whether this data was introduced into a vector database as part of a RAG implementation, right? Retrieval augmented generation does vector database activities, or whether it was introduced actually in the training data of the model itself. It's pretty hard to get rid of it once it's there, right? And if the model produces that data as a generative output, then if correspondingly agentic actions are configured, then yep, you're going to be wiping out things, and so it goes. All right then.
May you live in interesting times.
That's right. That should be the title of this episode. We definitely live in interesting times. Well, on that note, I think we'll just go ahead and sign off. So thanks for joining us today. And keep on prompting and keep on reading, and make sure you go outside and smell the grass once in a while, because like this technology world, sometimes you just got to get away and take a breath. Bye-bye, everybody.